Chapter 31, Volcano and Ghost. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. Khadga still had his eyes narrowed, and no one knew what he was thinking. The young alchemist on the side was wide-eyed, looking at Lin Yun in disbelief as he wondered, how could someone refuse such an opportunity? He is crazy apostrophe. At this time, the young alchemist truly wished to change places with this fellow. It would be so great if a potion that he had refined could appear in the Black Horn auction. Because I need money immediately. There are 4 things that I fancy in the Black Horn auction, so I would need money right now in order to compete for these things. Lin Yun decided to explain his reasoning since Khadga had been so courteous with him while Lin Yun had rejected him twice already, which could be considered quite impolite. When he heard Lin Yun's explanation, the squinting Khadga suddenly smiled. Mage Merlin, this is an easy matter to deal with. I can appraise your 2 potions right away. However much they are initially valued at is how much credit we'll front you to use in the auction. Moreover, I can guarantee that their eventual price will exceed my estimation. That should be good. Lin Yun nodded and took out the 2 potions from his pocket. Khadga glanced at them for a moment before an expression of amazement appeared on his face. He promptly grabbed the 2 potions and frowned as he carefully analyzed them. After a long time, he nodded gently as he turned back and asked uncertainly, "Volcano potion?" "Indeed, a volcano potion." Lin Yun's calm answer made Khadga hold his breath. My God! And the young alchemist who had wished to be in Lin Yun's shoes suddenly felt everything turning black around him when he heard those words. Volcano potion, it's actually a volcano potion apostrophe. Even if no one paid attention to him, the young alchemist still subconsciously bowed. He was hoping for a hole to appear so he could jump inside. It was the rumored volcano potion that could make one's mana burst like a volcano and let a great mage break through the high mage boundary. It had appeared in front of him, and he had valued it at just 300 gold coins and treated it as trash. That potion was the mark of a great alchemist. Being able to compound a volcano potion meant that one was surely qualified to enter the ranks of the great alchemists. This young mage, he is a great alchemist apostrophe. Someone that could stand shoulder to shoulder with Khadga and Thorpe. The young alchemist was in disbelief. He had offended a great alchemist, and one that was only 20 years old. This potion in contrast, Khadga was a lot calmer. After the initial surprise, he had already recovered and was looking suspiciously at the other potion. Sorry, it might be due to my age, but I cannot recognize the other potion. This is a ghost potion. Lin Yun smiled. This time, Khadga was stunned in silence. If the compounding of a volcano potion was the sign of a great alchemist, then the ghost potion was the sign of a pinnacle great alchemist. It was the potion that required skills closest to the master rank. For a great alchemist to be able to refine a ghost potion meant that he had already reached the summit of potioneering. As long as he had enough experience and time, he would be able to enter the master level at any time. Khadga had studied potioneering for dozens of years and was now stuck in the great alchemist realm. He didn't know how long it would take for him to reach the master level. Even Master Wilhelm had been praising this young mage endlessly, despite not knowing who exactly the alchemist was at the time. When Khadga had seen him present the volcano potion, he had thought that it was surely the pinnacle of this young alchemist's achievements. He never could have guessed that the second potion was actually the one that was closest to master level, the ghost potion. Originally, Khadga had made a lot of preparations: how to appraise these 2 potions, how to convince the other side to cooperate with the Black Horn auction house, how to lure this young mage with a boundless future, and so on. But when Khadga realized that this was a ghost potion, he found out that all his preparations had been for nothing. That's right, absolutely nothing. Luring a great alchemist that could become a master anytime. Even if Khadga was shameless, he couldn't say anything, let alone the Black Horn auction house. Even the Black Horn Chamber of Commerce behind him would have to send the higher-ups to negotiate with such a figure. As for persuasion or favors, there was no need to bring those up. In front of a future master alchemist, those little tricks had no meaning. Mage Merlin, this Khadga wanted to say something, but after starting his sentence, he found out that he didn't know what he should say at this point. You seem to have forgotten the appraisal, High Mage Khadga. Right. Appraisal with Lin Yun's reminder. Khadga recalled that he had promised to appraise the potions so that Lin Yun could use that money during the auction. But after studying the two potions for a long time, Khadga awkwardly felt that the originally simple appraisal was incomparably difficult. Khadga thought about it for a moment and clenched his teeth as he appeased, "Mage Merlin, I feel embarrassed. I cannot help you appraise the exact value of these two potions. I can only let you know that if you are willing to cooperate with the Black Horn Auction House, we will use these two potions as the last lot of the auction. As for the bidding over the 4 materials you need in the auction, I'll guarantee on the behalf of the Black Horn Auction House that you'll obtain our full support." Even Lin Yun was shocked when he heard Khadga's words. The Black Horn Auction House's full support. What kind of concept was that? It meant that as long as he was determined to have these 4 materials, he could use nearly unlimited funds. Good then. Thank you for your trust. These 2 potions shall be left in your hands. You are too polite. Originally, Khadga only wanted to use this opportunity to rope in that young mage with boundless prospects, but he hadn't expected that this young mage would actually bring such nice surprises. At the same time, Khadga didn't forget to remain polite and do his best to keep this young prodigy happy. A volcano potion and a ghost potion completely threw the original plans for the auction into chaos. Khadga had to hurry up and amend the original arrangements before the auction started. The sudden appearance of the 2 potions would have amazing results. Then, Mage Merlin, I'll go off first. After Khadga politely said a few more words, he hurriedly bade farewell. But before going out, he called out to that young alchemist. "Fail, help Mage Merlin. You must carefully take care of him. If you neglect to keep Mage Merlin satisfied, you can pack your things and return to Auckland." Yes, in fact, there was no need for Khadga's warning. After seeing everything with his own eyes, Fail had been frightened out of his wits. How could he dare slight Lin Yun now? Chapter 32. Slap. This chapter is updated by Novels.pl. Khadga departed, leaving only Lin Yun and Fail in the reception room. Lin Yun didn't make a fuss about his earlier actions, making Fail feel a bit guilty. Up till now, Fail still hadn't figured out how the situation had escalated to this point. It had originated from Fail being busy and estimating that Lin Yun was only an apprentice alchemist due to his age, so he hadn't been very polite. In fact, Fail would receive many such apprentice alchemists every day. They all had merely stepped onto the path of alchemy, yet they thought that it was a good use of time to bring a few of their products to try their luck at the Black Horn Auction House. Most of the time, Fail would make them leave their things behind and have them come back to get their money once their things sold. As for those that didn't sell, they would be put in a corner. If someone wanted to get them back, they would have to look for them there. This might seem a bit unfair, but he was just taking care of the most common case in the most efficient manner. But the Black Horn Auction House was so big and there were so many deals happening every day that no one would pay attention to Fail's actions. And those apprentice alchemists mostly came here to try their luck, so if it didn't sell, it didn't sell. It wasn't worth offending Fail for it. Thus, for so many years, Fail had never met any troubles from this. But his luck hadn't held out this time. It was as if he had gotten up on the wrong side of the bed this morning. Who would have thought that a 20-year-old mage would alarm Khadga? Who would believe that the 2 potions he casually took out were the volcano potion and the ghost potion? Who could believe that? In any case, by this point, he couldn't not believe it. When he thought of Khadga's warning before leaving, Fail felt his legs weaken. If he didn't take good care of Mage Merlin, he would have to pack up and return to Auckland. But his earlier actions had gone far beyond just neglecting him. Once his earlier behavior was mentioned to Khadga, he really would be finished. His job, his future, everything would be over. Fail thought about it and paled in dread. But Fail had indeed been able to become an alchemist at such a young age, and he had the qualifications to work at a place like the Black Horn Auction House. This definitely hadn't been due to just luck. Knowing how bad the situation was, the young alchemist immediately bit his lip and suddenly groveled under Lin Yun's feet. "Mage Merlin, I made a mistake, a huge mistake. I failed to recognize your greatness. Lin Yun looked stunned, and his jaw almost dropped down. What kind of scene is this? Mage Merlin, I trust that you are a magnanimous person, please let me off. I truly cannot afford to lose this job. Fail went all in. He could lose his face, but he definitely couldn't lose this job. Moreover, no one but this great alchemist would see his pitiable state. And Fail thought that even if someone else did see, he could just say that he was pleading a future master alchemist for leniency, and that they likely would never have an opportunity to even interact with one. Lin Yun was shocked for a long time. It would definitely be a lie to say that Lin Yun wasn't having some thoughts about this fellow. He had remained silent after Khadga left to see what this young alchemist would say. But Lin Yun had guessed what would happen, but not that it would be to such an extent. That young alchemist was indeed bowing, but the way he bowed was truly unconventional. An alchemist in his 20s was hugging his thigh while weeping. Was he trying to reenact a scene from a play? Lin Yun took a deep breath and used the calmest voice he could bring out to say, "First, stand up." Fail shamelessly wailed, "No, Mage Merlin, if you don't agree to let me off, I won't get up, won't get up, won't get up." Fail shuddered. "Move, you don't need to act so pathetic. Didn't Khadga ask you to take care of me and lead me to check out the auction?" "No, I can't." Fail started to speak, but after seeing Lin Yun's expression, which didn't seem too angry or displeased, he promptly explained, "It's like this, Mage Merlin. The Black Horn auction is only semi-open to the public. Only the VIPs who received an invitation can participate directly." "Ah?" Lin Yun froze when he heard that. There was such a thing with the Black Horn auction? Before Lin Yun could finish, Fail already carried a fawning smile as he said, "But it doesn't matter, Mage Merlin. You are High Mage Khadga's guest. It is tantamount to being a VIP of the Black Horn auction house. I'll bring you to deal with the formalities, and you can take part in the auction after you are done with those." Not bad. After leaving the reception room, Fail quickly helped Lin Yun with what he needed. During that time, Lin Yun got a whole new understanding of the young alchemist. He had to admit that this young alchemist truly was capable. He was able to handle matters quickly and efficiently, and he had reached the pinnacle at using others' reputations to settle problems. He relied on Khadga's name to help Lin Yun cut through the red tape. When meeting some fool, Fail would simply use the Khadga move, "This is the chief appraiser's guest. What are you doing? You don't want to do it?" Who would make things difficult for the chief appraiser's guest. In this manner, they were able to breeze through the required procedures, and in a short half an hour, Fail brought Lin Yun an invitation letter to a luxurious private room. This was one of the auction house's best rooms, and there were only a total of 7 of these rooms. In the past, they were set aside for each major force's leader. Only the peak powers of the eastern side of the kingdom could have their own seat. In Thousand Sails City, only the Sage Towers Solomon, and the Twin Moons Chamber of Commerce's Monchai were able to have one of the 7 private rooms. Someone like Sosu of the Viper Nest could only sit on the outer floor. After they were done with the formalities, the two arrived at the site of the auction, the entire top floor of the Black Horn auction house. It was a huge place that could hold 1,000 people. When the two arrived, they could see many important guests sitting in the large area. Khadga had just said that the Black Horn auction was a huge event in the entire eastern part of the kingdom, and these weren't empty words. When Lin Yun looked in from the entrance, he found out that nearly all of Thousand Sails City's top figures had come. The Sage Towers Solomon, the Twin Moons Chamber of Commerce's Monchai, the Viper Nest's Sosu, Silver Moon Mercenary Group's Sasu, and others. The VIP boxes were on the 2nd floor, and they were the best seats in the entire auction floor. Fail led the way while Lin Yun followed, looking around in curiosity. The two of them quickly reached the last private room on the 1st floor. Just as they were about to go up, they were stopped by someone. "Hey, young Master Merlin, this isn't a place for you." The one who stopped the two young men was the butler of the Monchai family, Jonathan. He was in his 50s and had a short stature with grizzled hair. He was always blunt and unkind to people of lower status. But before Lin Yun even answered, Fail stepped forward. "Who are you? What are you trying to pull by blocking this path?" Fail certainly wasn't polite. The young alchemist originally wasn't a polite person. After all, before Khadga arrived, he had been trash-talking Lin Yun. How could a mere butler be worth his attention? Moreover, Fail was still backed up by Khadga. This was tantamount to representing the entire Black Horn auction house. so he wouldn't have any problem being unscrupulous now. I am the butler of the Monchai family, Jonathan. This is Master's box. How could you rush through this area as you please, disturbing my master's rest? Are you able to handle the consequences? Jonathan wasn't easy to deal with either. In Thousand Sails City, the Monchai family definitely had great power. Besides holding the Sage Tower in high regards, it didn't attach much importance to the other forces, let alone two kids. Jonathan didn't think that he would meet someone even more unreasonable this time. This young fellow surprisingly didn't back down when facing the butler of the Monches. Even more surprisingly, Fail stepped forward and slapped him. A loud sound echoed, and the surroundings went silent. Jonathan covered one of his cheeks while pointing at Fail with a trembling finger. His eyes filled with disbelief. He was the butler of the Monchai family, one of the most trusted subordinates of his master. Even the leaders of each major force in Thousand Sails City would be polite to him. Did this kid go crazy? Yo, you dare slap me? He forced out, as he looked at Fail in consternation. Why wouldn't I dare? After Fail slapped him, he seemed as if he was up for more. Creating trouble in the Black Horn auction house. It seems to me that you don't want to live. To be honest, Jonathan really had bad luck. Normally, Jonathan should have been inside the box accompanying Monchai. As the trusted butler of the Monchai family, he definitely didn't need to stand outside the box as a guard. But somehow, Jonathan had noticed Lin Yun coming over. This was a happy coincidence. Lin Yun had previously humiliated Mason, and many people of the Monchai family, including Jonathan, knew about it. Seeing Lin Yun walking over, Jonathan suddenly felt like showing off in front of his two young masters. It seemed like an extremely good opportunity for him. His master had come in person today, and there were so many elite mercenaries guarding the family. Even if that Merlin was extremely bold, how could he dare stir up trouble here? As long as Merlin didn't dare to retaliate, he would be able to humiliate him and help young Master Mason get back at him, and later on, young Master Mason would definitely treat him favorably. He might even compliment him in front of Monchai himself. But ultimately, things didn't go quite as planned for Jonathan. Chapter 33, Styx Water. This chapter is updated by Novels.pl. Lin Yun indeed didn't do anything, because the one who made a move was Fail, and he didn't even ask any questions as he directly slapped Jonathan senseless. He didn't care if this old man was a butler of the Monchai family. All he had been worried about was atoning for his earlier crime and mending his relations with the future master alchemist. When Jonathan came over with such an attitude, after getting Khadga's instructions, how could Fail pay any heed to a mere butler? He just went straight over and slapped him. Mage Merlin, let's go and sit. Don't let this trivial matter ruin your mood. After badmouthing Jonathan, Fail's sneer was replaced with a smile. The speed at which his expression changed was rather shocking. Sure, let's go. You can't go, you definitely aren't allowed to go in. Hearing that the two wanted to enter, Jonathan immediately jumped up. You still dare to act up after slapping me? Guards, capture these two for me. Shut up. Just as Jonathan was calling out, the door of a box above opened and Monchai himself came out. Get inside, don't embarrass me. After Monchai's words came out, the first floor was silent once again. Jonathan's animated voice suddenly came to a halt, and as he gave the two young men a hateful glance, he escaped into Monchai's box. Sorry about that, President Monchai, I didn't control my strength, Fail shouted as Jonathan was climbing the stairs, making the latter suddenly stagger and almost fall down. Look at what you have done for me. After the box was closed, Monchai's expression was quite unsightly. You provoked that Fail. He's a young alchemist that even Khadga thinks highly of, and you made things difficult for him. Are you crazy? I'm not, Master. I only saw that kid of the Merlin family. Shut up. Are you done causing trouble for me? After berating Jonathan, Monchai couldn't help feeling puzzled. However, how could that Merlin kid stand together with Fail? And it even seemed like they had a good relationship. They should have gotten acquainted by chance. Mason interjected on the side, fuming. That Merlin's luck is very good. It was the same last time in the Sage Tower. I don't know how he got into Solon's good books and had me kicked out of the library. Being born in the Monchai clan, The number of times Mason had publicly suffered a loss could be counted on his fingers. He didn't know why things had played out like that. First, he was kicked out from the Sage Towers library, and when he went to look for trouble at the Gilded Rose, he was instead forced to eat a glass bottle. How could Mason be fine with this? Mason had constantly been looking for an opportunity to retaliate since he came back from the Gilded Rose. But he didn't expect that after his father and elder brother discussed it, they would forbid him from returning to the Gilded Rose. Since Lin Yun had shown up in the Black Horn auction house today, Mason immediately started plotting his revenge. You still dare to mention the matter of the Sage Tower? Mon Chai looked at Mason unhappily, but he strangely didn't deny Mason's guess, because Mon Chai himself felt that these two young men should have met by accident and ended up hitting it off for some reason, perhaps due to having the same hobby. In any case, they had met and formed a favorable relationship. Otherwise, Fail wouldn't have stepped in to help Mafia Merlin, let alone stealthily preparing a special box for him. After all, these boxes were set aside for the leaders of the local major forces. Even if only a few came to this auction, they wouldn't casually let others use the unoccupied ones. If Khadga found out, he would certainly reprimand and punish Fail. For Fail to take this risk was proof that the friendship between them was quite solid. But regardless of how good it was just a new friendship, so it wouldn't have too big of an influence. If not for his butler being involved, Mon Chai wouldn't even have spared a thought for the matter. After coming to this conclusion, Mon Chai decided to just leave this problem be. He only said to Jonathan, "You don't need to look so pitiful, wait until the auction is over and I'll seek out Khadga. The butler of my Mon Chai family isn't someone that can be slapped on a whim." "Thank you, Master, thank you." Jonathan promptly bowed and expressed his gratitude, his mind already crafting a plot. After the auction is over, if Master steps in personally, Khadga most likely won't interfere. How should those two be humiliated? Well, there is still a lot of time to think about this. Jonathan definitely didn't know that there was another person in the neighboring box thinking about the same thing. That Jonathan is too daring. He dared to disrespect Mage Merlin. Just wait until the auction is over, I'll show him. As Fail led Lin Yun to his seat while beaming, he kept the unlucky butler in mind. To Fail, this was like an opportunity delivering itself to him. He had been worried that there was nothing he could do to curry favor with this future master alchemist, but then that Jonathan suddenly arrived with his high and mighty attitude. This really made Fail not know what to say for a moment. It was so lucky. Moreover, he could also act overbearing by relying on Khadga's reputation. Dealing with a small butler in the Black Horn auction house was too easy. Such an easy way to curry favor with the future master alchemist. Was there something more profitable? This time, Fail was already planning meticulously. He had to go all out to deal with Jonathan so that he could show Mage Merlin how sincere and determined he was to make up for his previous mistake. Mage Merlin might be cheerful enough to pardon him for his past behavior and maybe even give him a few alchemy pointers. Those would be pointers from a master alchemist, which might even make him break through. Fail became more and more cheerful. He simply wished that the auction could finish up so that he could deal with the Jonathan fellow next door. Okay, Fail, focus on the auction first. While Fail was wishing for the auction to already be over, Lin Yun was of a far different mindset. He still didn't have any of the 4 materials he needed for the mana baptism. Yes, of course. Focus on the auction first. Fail was completely in character now. He didn't need Khadga's instructions. The words of this future master alchemist were the law. If he said to focus on the auction, he would focus on the auction. While the two were chatting, the auction officially began. The auction was personally hosted by Khadga. The first item to come up was a magic dagger from Odrock City. It was called Tornado Tooth. Tornado Tooth, the masterpiece of Odrock City's great alchemist Andre. 3 wind rocks were embedded in the weapon, forming a wind blessing. Not only can it raise the wielder's movement speed substantially, but it can also automatically fire a wind spell under the 5th rank every minute. It is a rare, high-quality piece among excellent magic tools. The starting price is 5,000 gold. and the minimum bid increment is 500 gold. Khadga was worthy of being the Black Horn Auction's chief auctioneer. He only needed a few sentences to clearly introduce this excellent magic tool. 5,500 gold. As the first item of the auction, the price for the item was quite good. So just as Khadga finished introducing the item, someone raised their paddle. 6,000 gold. 6,500. 7,500. Naturally, there were a few people who had their eyes on it, and in a short time, Tornado Tooth's price went over 10,000 gold before finally being bought by a rich and powerful person from Modrock City for 13,000 gold. He apparently had indicated that he intended to use it to pay respect to great alchemist Andre. After Tornado Tooth was won, Khadga quickly auctioned 2 magic tools with fairly good quality. Even Lin Yun was slightly tempted by one of the items, but he managed to check himself. Magic tools were useless to the current Lin Yun. As long as he advanced to become a great mage, with that nether iron vein of several hundred meters, he could have countless excellent magic tools, and those excellent magic tools would have Lin Yun's name signed on them. But Lin Yun didn't have to wait for long. The 4th auctioned item soon appeared, and it was one of the 4 materials Lin Yun needed for the mana baptism, the Styx water. The next item is a bottle of water from the river Styx of Ghost City. There are many alchemists here, so I'm sure everyone is aware of the value of this bottle of Styx water. The starting price of the Styx water is 10,000 and the minimum bid increment is 1,000. 11,000 gold. 13,000. 14,000. 17,000 gold. Just as Khadga finished speaking, voices echoed here and there in the audience. A bottle of Styx water with a starting price of 10,000 gold soon reached twice that amount. But Lin Yun wasn't anxious, because he noticed that after reaching 20,000, the price was increasing much more slowly. In other words, most people felt that this bottle was only worth about this much, so it would be unprofitable to chase the price much higher. In this era, Lin Yun was perhaps the only one who knew the true value of the Styx water. The current state of alchemy was far from being developed enough to unearth this reagent's true value. After all, mana baptisms wouldn't come to pass until 1,000 years later, let alone those even more powerful formulas. Lin Yun just waited for the bidding to die down. Chapter 34, Hell Destroyer. This chapter is updated by Novels.pl. When the price reached 37,000 gold, the venue went silent. Most of the people who had participated in the bidding were shaking their heads, wearing smiles that carried a hint of ridicule. A bottle of Styx water reaching such a price. To them, this was already a foolish waste of money. Clearly, even if Styx water was rare, it didn't have a wide range of use in alchemy. There were no more than 10 kinds of potions that used Styx water, and most of them could use other materials as a substitute. To bid such a high price on a bottle of Styx water wasn't something a rational alchemist would do. 37,000 gold. Going once. Going twice. 37,000 gold. If there are no higher bids. 50,000 gold. Just as Khadga was about to announce the deal, a voice came from a box on the 2nd floor. Lin Yun's bid of 50,000 gold made the originally quiet venue become rather lively. The people who had participated in the bidding for the item couldn't help turning to look at the box on the 2nd floor, wanting to see what the spendthrift looked like. Bidding 50,000 gold for a bottle of Styx water. This already surpassed something that could be described as foolish. After all, Tornado Tooth, an excellent magic tool, was only able to go a bit over 10,000 gold. So that bottle of Styx water was worth a few Tornado Tooths. Why waste your money like that? Unfortunately, no one was able to see who it was. The one who walked out of the box was actually Fail of the Black Horn Auction House. It's that Merlin kid. Out of all the people in the venue, only those in the box of the Monchai family knew who that profligate spender was. How could he have so much money? Monchai frowned. There was nothing wrong with the bottle of Styx water, but the appearance of 50,000 gold was a huge variable. Even in the Monchai family, only 2 or 3 people knew that Monchai had been targeting the house left behind by Loch Merlin. At first, after Loch Merlin's shipwreck, Monchai felt that getting that house should be easy, so he looked for Fario and used the 8,000 gold promised in the contract in his hands to drive Merlin out of there. But unexpectedly, Just as he was about to get hold of the house, Mather Merlin became a mage out of nowhere and had the necessary gold, making Monchai lose his chance. Monchai didn't lose hope, though, and he went to look for Sossu for the Viper Nest to be able to rise to the top in just over a decade and sit on the throne of the underground forces. This was inevitably linked to the support of the Monchai family. This was an open secret among the major forces of Thousand Sails City. With Monchai's incentives, Sossu sent a 9th rank mage. Normally, sending a 9th rank mage to deal with a young fellow who had recently been a mere apprentice and a butler who was getting old would be making a big fuss over nothing. But ultimately, the 9th rank mage was defeated, and the few dozen subordinates had been scared silly. A few days after returning to the Viper Nest, they found an excuse to leave Thousand Sails City and hadn't appeared again ever since. But even these two failures only made Monchai frown a bit, as he still didn't put much stock in that Mather Merlin. In Monchai's eyes, he was a young mage with no background and no power. How could he defeat a 9th rank mage? In the entire Thousand Sails City, the only person that could decide everything through strength was Solomon. Even if others were powerful, they couldn't rely on their personal power to contend against the Monchai family. The 50,000 gold today, though, this made Monchai feel a bit worried. Although the amount itself wasn't much, this was a variable that he didn't know about, because Monchai couldn't figure out where this gold had come from. Who gave this gold to Mather Merlin? Could there be another force looking into that house? If that's the case, that will make the matter very troublesome. The Black Tower wanted ownership of that house. If he couldn't manage that matter properly, the entire Monchai family would be in trouble. Who leaked the news? Monchai wondered, considering the possibilities. It might be Fail lending him some money. That Merlin kid has always been lucky. Last time in the Sage Tower he relied on Solon, and this time in the Black Horn auction he is using his relationship with Fail. I'll have a look and see whether he'll still have Fail behind him after leaving the Black Horn auction. That glass bottle in the Gilded Rose was the stain on Mason's life. Although he was still in the auction, his thoughts weren't there anymore. Mason's mind was filled with thoughts of tormenting and humiliating that wretch, and he kept muttering under his breath, "Shut up." Monchai glanced unhappily at his son. It would be great if it was this simple. Fail's status in the Black Horn auction house wasn't low, but such an amount of gold wasn't something that he could easily take out. But Monchai knew that reasoning with Mason was useless now. That kid was completely fixated on getting revenge, so how could he listen to something else right now? Thinking of this, Monchai urged him, "Oh right, I have to let you know. I don't care if you want to deal with that kid, but the conflict with the Sage Tower and Solon last time already left the family in a bad situation. If you cause trouble this time, then don't even think of leaving the house afterwards." Okay, I got it. While this father-son pair was talking, Fail had already carried that bottle of Styx water back to the box. Mage Merlin, is this really worth so much gold? After Fail gave the Styx water to Lin Yan, he couldn't help asking after hesitating for a long time. This was someone that was destined to become a master alchemist. If it had been anyone else that used so much money to buy a bottle of Styx water, Fail would have already mocked them. Wasn't this a complete waste? How could Styx water be worth so much? Even new alchemist would be clear about it. Spending 50,000 gold to buy a bottle of Styx water was truly foolish. But that bottle of Styx water was bought by Lin Yan, so Fail didn't dare to comment. As a future master alchemist, this young man's insight and experience was something he couldn't compare with. Even Khadgar wasn't on that level. There was definitely a reason for him to buy a bottle of Styx water. He couldn't understand only because he didn't have enough experience and insight. Indeed, Lin Yan opened the lid of the bottle. It was very pure Styx water, even better than he had imagined. At the peak of the magic era, such a bottle could easily be exchanged for a dozen abyssal magic diamonds. Only paying 50,000 gold for such a precious material, Lin Yan couldn't help feeling great about it. And the auction house had guaranteed that it would let him pay any price for the items he wanted. Anyways, facing Fail's question, he even said a few more things. Wait until the auction is over and try replacing troll blood with Styx water when compounding an abyss potion. It should increase the quality. Thank you, Mage Merlin, "Thank you very much." Fail froze before a pleasant expression appeared on his face. It came. Advice from a future master alchemist. I wasn't wrong. As long as I acknowledge my mistake and show that I'm completely sincere, someone of such lofty stature wouldn't hold a grudge. And not only did he let the matter of my past slights drop, but he even gave me a pointer. This was the pointer of a future master alchemist. Thinking of this, Fail was so excited that he didn't know what to say. He repeatedly expressed his thanks while feeling bewildered. After some time, he fished out a slip of paper from his pocket and recorded Mage Merlin's suggestion. Lin Yun smiled before focusing his attention back on the auction. As for Fail's scribbling, Lin Yun didn't need to look at it. In fact, using Styx water to replace troll blood when compounding the Abyss potion wouldn't make its quality just a bit better. It would increase the quality by several times, giving the Abyss potion a qualitative change. Moreover, this was just a superficial use of Styx water. Styx water's true value far surpassed 50,000 gold. Lin Yun estimated that if he used it sparingly, that bottle of Styx water would be enough to compound 10 potions on the same level as the ghost potion once he used what he needed for the mana baptism. The auction was still ongoing, and although Lin Yun's extravagant expenditure led to a few heated debates, most people only considered it a funny topic, and once they were done jeering about it, they put it out of their minds. After all, those who had participated in the auction of the Styx water weren't planning to get it at all costs. It would be good if they could get it at a low cost, but not getting it wouldn't result in a loss. Getting a funny joke for free was good too. Afterwards, 2 more items were auctioned, and with Khadgar overseeing the auction, they sold at a decent price. The next auctioned item is a badly damaged spell. Khadgar's introduction puzzled many people. Magic had developed for so many years. The inheritance of spells had already been refined thoroughly, so there would very rarely be a badly damaged spell. And if a spell really was so badly damaged, the value of the incantation would be 0, even if it had shocking might. As long as one character was lacking, it meant that the spell was already a piece of scrap. Regardless of how powerful a mage was, one couldn't use an incomplete incantation to cast a spell, let alone reproduce the power of the proper spell. So why did Khadgar take out this badly damaged spell? I believe that everyone present has heard the name of this spell before. The Third Era's last Heaven rank mage, Rudolph, once used this spell to destroy an entire army of demons. That's right, this spell is Hell Destroyer. Chapter 35. Spiritual Augment. This chapter is updated by Novels.pl. Khadgar had just finished speaking when the entire venue suddenly became quiet. This strange silence stretched on interminably, before finally bursting into a huge commotion. Hell Destroyer. Did I mishear? Is it really Hell Destroyer? Hell Destroyer was rumored to be the spell created by the last Heaven Mage of the Third Dynasty when faced with an army of demons. This spell was referred to as the only extraordinary spell. In that era, it nearly overturned the ideas of the entire magic system. But after the Third Dynasty, that spell had completely disappeared. Rudolph fell at the end of the battle and the inner workings of the only extraordinary spell were buried along with him. After over 1,000 years, even with countless mages working hard at it, they weren't able to reconstruct this extremely powerful spell. No one could have thought that it would appear today in the Blackhorn auction. Indeed, the extraordinary spell was already badly damaged, and like it was mentioned before, no matter how powerful a mage was, they wouldn't be able to rely on this incomplete incantation to cast the spell. But this didn't matter to everyone present. Even a complete version of Hell Destroyer, an extraordinary spell, wasn't something that ordinary people could grasp. What was important was the knowledge that could be contained within. That was the legacy left behind by a Heaven Mage. Even one simple character would contain countless secrets. The bidding for this badly damaged Hell Destroyer spell will start at 50,000 gold. The minimum bidding increment is 5,000 gold. The starting price was set at the same amount that Lin Yun had paid for the bottle of Styx water. But the only difference was that Lin Yun had been ridiculed by the entire venue for his purchase. while the auction of the Hell Destroyer spell immediately set off a wave of bids. 60,000 gold, 70,000, 100,000. Less than a minute passed and the current bid for the damaged incantation had already reached 100,000 gold. And it seemed that this was just the beginning. That price was quickly overtaken by the following bids, and by the time it reached 250,000, it suddenly stopped, letting people gasp for breath. But it was followed by another round of competition. Crazy bids were announced one after the other. A damaged incantation somehow managed to reach the incredible price of 500,000 gold. What kind of concept was that much gold? When Lochmerlin opened the Gilded Rose on the Victorious Return Main Street, from buying magic materials to hiring an alchemist, it cost him a total of 100,000 gold. In other words, Hell Destroyer's damaged incantation was currently worth 5 of Lochmerlin's fledgling business. The mages in the venue were practically going crazy over this badly damaged incantation. There were more than 100 mages, a few dozen great mages, and even a few high mages in attendance at this Black Horn auction. Their thirst for the Hell Destroyer was something that those unacquainted with magic couldn't understand. This was the legacy of a heaven mage, an unfathomable treasure to every mage. Among all those mages, Lin Yun was probably the only one that wasn't moved. To him, the value of the Hell Destroyer spell was really small. There were no fewer than 10 spells in his mind with the same power, and they were all complete. Lin Yun's problem right now wasn't mastering these spells, but rather reaching a high enough rank to cast them. In other words, the 4 materials for the mana baptism were a lot more valuable than the Hell Destroyer, at least to Lin Yun. Thus, Lin Yun was completely at ease as he watched the play, with all these people fighting over items and spending their money so that they wouldn't be able to compete with him over the remaining 3 materials that he wanted. And the numerous mages at the auction didn't fail to live up to Lin Yun's expectations. The previous bid of 500,000 gold only managed to shock the venue for a short moment before a voice came out from one of the boxes. 600,000 gold. This was the bid of the Sage Tower. Solomon, who had been silent for a long time, finally made his bid. The venue became silent once more after this bid was announced, and it lasted a lot longer than the previous time. This was already an extremely high price. Not to mention that the one who bid was Solomon. The 3 big shots of the Sage Tower were already considered legends in the kingdom. Even major forces couldn't neglect those 3 high mages. When Solomon declared his bid, some of the mages who had wanted to bid had to reconsider. Of course, not all the mages would think twice about bidding against him. 650,000 gold. Another voice came out from another box, raising the price of the Hell Destroyer incantation by another bump. Furthermore, after announcing the bid, that voice added with a hint of provocation, "I'm really sorry, Solomon, our Ash Tower is also interested in the Hell Destroyer incantation." A fierce cough came out as an answer, as well as an even higher bid. 700,000, 800,000. Perhaps it was in order to keep provoking Solomon, or perhaps because he was irritated by the attitude of his counterpart. The mage from the Ash Tower instantly raised the price yet again right after Solomon bid. A short silence came over the box of the Sage Tower before Solomon called a new bid, 830,000 gold. But the mage from the Ash Tower quickly raised the stakes. 900,000. A violent cough came out from the Sage Tower's box, but no new bid appeared. Lin Yun couldn't help shaking his head when seeing this scene. It seemed that this badly damaged Hell Destroyer incantation would end up in the hands of the Ash Tower. Although the Sage Tower stood at the peak of Thousand Sails City, they weren't as prosperous as some people would assume on the financial side. A large number of mages would need financing for their many experiments and other expenditures, so suddenly taking out $1 million wasn't that easy. But that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. The price was truly already too high. It would be fine if they were bidding on a complete incantation, but this incantation was obviously badly damaged. Even if he managed to reproduce the spell, it would never possess the might of that time. The only thing it would do now was to allow one to take a glimpse into the wisdom of a heaven mage. And considering his resources, Lin Yun felt that this really wasn't worth it. Wait, what's that? Just as Lin Yun shook his head, something about the badly damaged scroll caught his eye. and he felt a jolt of shock. The mana fluctuations emitted by that scroll seemed a bit abnormal. Lin Yun frowned as he thought about this. He stared at the incantation scroll, studying it. The first thing that Lin Yun noticed was the trace of a burn at the bottom of the scroll. That should be the real cause of the damage. At the same time, Lin Yun noticed that after a millennium of wear and tear, the characters on the scroll were still incomparably clear, without the slightest trace of becoming blurry. Based on this, Lin Yun was sure of one thing. That scroll had definitely been written with eternal ink, because only eternal ink could resist the corrosion of time to this extent. Regardless of how many years passed, the characters wouldn't change. But the mana fluctuations of eternal ink definitely didn't look like that. The scroll itself didn't have any magical power, and the mana fluctuations were extremely weak. An ordinary mage wouldn't be able to notice those minute differences. But Lin Yun was different. He had read so many books written in eternal ink in the decaying library. As what other books would be able to survive the ravages of time? The unique mana fluctuation was already deeply engraved in his mind. So once he focused on the scroll, it took but an instant for him to notice that this wasn't actually the mana fluctuation of eternal ink. But, if it wasn't the mana fluctuations of eternal ink, what was it? These mana fluctuations were very special, giving him a feeling of liveliness. And Lin Yun had only ever seen these kinds of mana fluctuations on a spiritual magic tool. Oh, right, a spiritual magic tool. This time, Lin Yun didn't dare to neglect it as he chanted in a low voice, secretly casting Detect Life. That's right. There was a faint aura of life in the surroundings of the scroll. Although it was a bit weak, that kind of lively feeling couldn't be kept hidden from someone that suspected it was there. Lin Yun was 100% sure that this scroll had a spiritual aura. But it wasn't actually a spiritual magic tool. Rather, it should be a rumored spiritual augment. Spiritual augments were similar to spiritual magic tools, as both had spirituality. But the difference was that a spiritual magic tool's spirituality was bestowed by the alchemist. From the day of its creation, it was already finalized, stable and powerful. But it wouldn't grow. A spiritual augment was completely different. Its spirituality couldn't exist by itself. It would have to attach to another magic tool, and the stronger the magic tool, the faster it would grow. There had been several famous spiritual augments in Nocent's history, and when they grew to their limits, their power was not inferior to that of an extraordinary magic tool. Chapter 36. Deal. This chapter is updated by Novels.pl. Just by itself, a spiritual magic tool was more useful than a spiritual augment, since after all, a spiritual magic tool had the fighting strength of a high mage, while a spiritual augment could even be considered useless if it was not attached to a magic tool. But once a spiritual augment was added to a sufficiently powerful magic tool, this would be reversed. Especially after the spiritual augment completely matured, the two couldn't even be compared anymore. This was why a spiritual augment with no inherent fighting power was still far more valuable than a spiritual magic tool with the strength of a high mage. When Lin Yun realized that the item in front of his eyes was actually a spiritual augment, eagerness filled his face. Fail. He called out, after thinking for a short moment. Fail had been using this time to theorize on how the revised formula of the Abyss Potion would work. So far, assuming that his lines of thought were valid, the resulting improvements could only be described as crazy because the quality would increase by several times. This kind of potion couldn't even be called an Abyss Potion anymore. Faced with this incredible outcome, Fail was stunned. He had been leaning on the table and staring at the papers filled with all kinds of formulas, rechecking them over and over to see whether he had made a mistake. Second check, no mistakes. Third check, no mistakes. Ninth, 10th. He still didn't find any mistakes. In other words, the outcome of his calculations should definitely be true. The moment he put down those papers, Fail felt as if a door to a whole new world had been opened in front of him. Such great happiness was something that only a true alchemist could understand. Researching day after day, experimenting year after year, not being able to take one more step forward in one's alchemy for a long time, when suddenly, that last step would be easily bridged. That sudden happiness even made Fail wonder whether or not he was in a dream. Fail. Lin Yun called him twice without getting a reaction, and thus raised his voice impatiently. Yes, "Yes, Mage Merlin, what can I do for you?" When he noticed Lin Yun calling him with a raised voice, Fail was woken from his dream, and he looked at Lin Yun once more. Apart from the bit of remaining dread in his eyes, there was only yearning and worship. That was yearning for knowledge and worship of wisdom. "Go to the Sage Tower box on my behalf and let High Mage Solomon know that I can help him pay for half of this Hell Destroyer scroll, and after winning it, the Sage Tower can have it for a month first. During that month, the Sage Tower can copy the scroll and research the incantation as they wish as long as they don't destroy the scroll. And for providing half of the funds to buy it, I will get to keep it permanently after that month." "Yes, I will take care of this." If it had been in the past, Fail would still question whether Solomon would accept such unfair conditions. But after checking the theory behind the revised version of the Abyss Potion, Fail wouldn't do something so stupid. He would have to be crazy to question such a talented future master alchemist. After Fail left, Lin Yun remained standing as he eyed the scroll on stage while thinking about the Bone Plane. The extraordinary Book of Death that Bane used most likely came from the Bone Plane, because an extraordinary magic tool like the Book of Death could only be born in a place like that Black Wasteland, which was shrouded in death. If everything went smoothly, he had planned to expand toward the depths of the Bone Plane after he grasped the Nether Iron Vein. At that time, the flashing gold Chamber of Commerce should have recovered some strength, giving him the power and resources needed to organize a planar expedition. As long as he had the strength to survive in the Bone Plane, he would be able to find a way to locate the rumored shortcut and get the Book of Death that had once belonged to Bane. With the Book of Death and a spiritual augment, let alone a high mage, even an archmage would have to turn back if he opposed them. While Lin Yun was immersed in the thoughts of his plans for the future, the box door opened once again. This time, Fail was accompanied by Solon. When he discovered that the owner of the box was actually Lin Yun, Solon clearly froze for a moment, but he quickly smiled cordially and greeted, "I didn't expect it to be you, Mage Merlin. Teacher Solomon would like to invite you to sit with him. Are you free?" "Of course, it would be my honor." When he saw that Solon had entered, Lin Yun was smiling because he knew that the spiritual augment was likely already in his hands. When the group of three entered the Sage Tower box, Lin Yun found that this time, only Solomon of the Sage Tower's big three had come to the auction. The old man was thin and emaciated. He was sitting in a corner of the box, his thin body somewhat twisted as he burst into a coughing fit from time to time. No matter how one looked at it, he was an old man with one foot in the grave. If not for his reputation, who would know that this was the person who had stood at the peak of Thousand Sails City for over 20 years and held back numerous forces? "Hello, High Mage Solomon." Lin Yun greeted him courteously, but he couldn't help frowning slightly. The High Mage seemed even less healthy than the Sage Tower was suggesting to the public. That violent cough was clearly a sign of mana collapse, as each of his coughs was letting out an unstable mana fluctuation. In this era, there was no solution for mana collapse. For any mage, once they suffered a mana collapse, it meant that their life's efforts had come to an end. For Solomon to still manage to keep his power as a high mage despite the mana collapse could only be described as a miracle. But that miracle was probably coming to an end. Lin Yun estimated that this high mage who had shaken Thousand Sails City for over 20 years would only live another 5 years at most. From his cough, Lin Yun could guess that the berserk mana was already destroying his internal organs. Maybe 3 years. Maybe 5, but all that was certain was that this powerful high mage didn't have long to live. In fact, his grooming of Solon to become the next leader these past few years was already a sign. Mage Merlin's insight is much better than I imagined. Solomon was sitting in the corner and did not get up to welcome him. This was quite normal based on his age, as there were few people older than him in all of Thousand Sails City. But when he saw Lin Yun's slight frown, he nodded in understanding, because Solomon knew that this young mage had already seen it. "You are overpraising me," Lin Yun modestly answered. He didn't exchange too much pleasantry as he was led to his seat by Solon, and he directly went to the core of the matter. "I wonder whether High Mage Solomon has considered my proposal. I have 2 questions. Solomon displayed 2 bony fingers while looking at Lin Yun with a faint smile. "First, Several 100,000 gold isn't a small amount. The current flashing gold Chamber of Commerce doesn't seem to be able to come up with this amount. Second, if the Sage Tower also pays for half, why can't the scroll remain with the Sage Tower? Before replying to your first question, I need to introduce Alchemist Fail to you. Lin Yun called Fail over and said, Alchemist Fail of the Black Horn Auction House. I believe he can give you a satisfactory answer to your first question. Indeed, High Mage Solomon, I can guarantee that in this auction, Mage Merlin obtained the Black Horn Auction House's full support. He can win any item he wants. Khadga's insight is pretty good. After Solomon heard this, he only shook his head with a smile, not inquiring further about it. As for your second question, Lin Yun stopped here and glanced outside the box, before cryptically continuing, I think it's mostly because you dislike the Ash Tower more than I do. Haha, this answer made Solomon stare at Lin Yun for a long time, and when he saw that Lin Yun was unwavering, the old man stood up and extended his withered right hand. In that case, Mage Merlin, I wish us a pleasant cooperation. To a pleasant cooperation. After Lin Yun reached an agreement with the Sage Tower, the auction suddenly reached its climax. Upon hearing Lin Yun's offer, Solomon had continued to place some spaced out bids to keep the auction going because he really didn't want to lose to the Ash Tower, even though they had ridiculed him for having such lousy bid increments. Sage Tower, Ash Tower, these two major forces fought over the Hell Destroyer spell, and the bid reached 1,300,000 gold. This price made everyone wonder whether these two forces were going crazy. This was the highest price reached in all the auctions so far. Paying such a shocking amount for a badly damaged incantation. Was it really worth it? 1,400,000 gold. When Solomon suddenly raised the price by 100,000 again, the entire venue was shrouded in silence. Apart from a cold snort from the Ash Tower's box, no other bid came out. After waiting a few moments, Khadga slowly asked if there were any higher bids 3 times before the badly damaged incantation was awarded to High Mage Solomon of the Sage Tower. Thus, Lin Yun would have to pay 700,000 gold for this scroll. The scroll was quickly brought to Solomon's box, and after Lin Yun glanced at it, he passed it to Solomon. For Lin Yun, the incomplete incantation inscribed on it was insignificant. The important part was the scroll itself. In any case, the scroll would be his 1 month hence, so it didn't matter whether he had time to inspect it now. After winning the Hell Destroyer incantation, Lin Yun had been intending to take his leave, but he hadn't expected that this high mage who always remained alone would actually urge him so resolutely to stay. Lin Yun thought it would be rather awkward to insist on leaving in this situation, so ultimately, he had no choice but to stay. Chapter 37, Red Flame Fish Oil. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. The next several items auction weren't any of the materials that Lin Yun needed, and Solomon's attention didn't seem to be on the auction at all. The two began an idle chat, and the subject matter quickly turned to magic. Normally, a mage and a high mage wouldn't have much in common, since the difference between their realms was too wide. But on one hand, Lin Yun wasn't an ordinary mage, and on the other hand, Solomon deliberately showed consideration. Even if he spontaneously brought up a topic, it would be mostly within the realm of what mages would know about, and even if it was occasionally in the Great Mage realm, he wouldn't go too far or dwell on it. Both of them had very deep knowledge of magic, and the discussion was very interesting and harmonious. But unfortunately, this harmonious conversation didn't continue for long, because an uninvited guest arrived at the box. High Mage Solomon, I am Mason of the Monchai family. Could you do me the honor of allowing me inside? Mason stood at the door of the box, fixing his appearance while taking a deep breath. Mason, who wasn't seen in a good light in the Monchai family these days, finally got the opportunity to represent his whole family. It was easy to imagine what kind of mood he was in. While standing in front of the door, Mason was thinking that he had to make a proper performance and let Solomon see his outstanding magical talent. And if the revered High Mage was in a cheerful mood, he might even decide to give him a few pointers. He had to make a proper impression to let his father, his older brother, and everyone in Thousand Sails City know that the Monchai clan didn't only have Ryan to represent them. Coming Solomon helplessly shook his head and smiled apologetically to Lin Yan. "Greetings, High Mage Solomon, I am here on behalf of my father," Mason entered the box with a dignified expression, but just as he was about to repeat the words told to him by his father, he realized that there were two unexpected people here. Fail and Maffa. Such good luck. Mason was pleasantly surprised to see the brat here. He had been still thinking of waiting for the auction to be over before dealing with that annoyance. He never thought that his luck would be so good that he would find him in Solomon's box before the auction was even halfway through. Solomon's box isn't a place that just anyone can enter as they please. Even I was warned repeatedly by father to be polite and respectful. Yet this Maffa Merlin dared to appear here? How arrogant is he? Mason thought. That's right, that guy definitely heard that High Mage Solomon was here, so he came over to try his luck and see whether High Mage Solomon would take pity on him and give him the opportunity to learn in the Sage Tower. A trick like this won't escape my notice. Mason was rather proud of how well he had learned to detect intrigue. But this is good. I was worried about not finding you, but you actually delivered yourself to me and even gave me the opportunity to show my intelligence and wisdom before High Mage Solomon. Mason took a deep breath and calmed his mood before pointing his finger at Lin Yan and chastising with an expression full of righteousness. "Maffa Merlin, what are you doing here? Why aren't you hurrying out? Is this a place you can be in? Can you afford to bother High Mage Solomon's rest?" As Mason's words trailed off, the box became silent. Lin Yan and Solomon didn't react at all, but the look that Fail had as he stared at Mason, he was completely dumbstruck. What is he even talking about? Is the second son of the Monchai family completely brainless or what? Does he not know that the person he is pointing at is a future master alchemist? This is a person that Khadga personally welcomed and treated politely. To point at him so carelessly and say something like that, he doesn't want to keep his hand. Right? His attitude could hardly be further from how it had been when he first met Lin Yan. Moreover, asking if this is a place he can be in. Damn, if it wasn't for Solomon urging Merlin to stay, we would have already gone back to our box. No wonder half of Monchai's hair already turned white before he turned 50. It was all due to this idiot's son. Truly pathetic. If I had such a stupid son, I would be so ashamed to have to admit our relationship. What? Still not getting out? Mason didn't seem to notice anyone else's reactions. As he stood there, righteously calling Maffa out, everyone looked at him in silence. He felt that his aura was very mighty at this moment, making him feel quite pleased. "I'm telling you, you'd better get out immediately. Don't say I'm not giving you any respect. Wait until someone throws you out, and you'll understand what it's like to feel really pathetic." That's enough, Mason. Seeing that this guy was getting more and more unreasonable, Solomon, who had been enjoying the scene, ultimately put a stop to it. After coughing a few times, he explained, "Mage Merlin is my guest. You've said what your father sent you over for, right? Eh?" Mason was suddenly stunned when he heard that. What kind of situation was this? Why was it different from what he expected? He didn't even get to accomplish his task and he had already been dismissed. When did that Maffa Merlin become High Mage Solomon's guest? Did High Mage Solomon pity him and deliberately give him a way out? This won't do. I finally got a chance. I can't let him trick High Mage Solomon like this. Mason quickly said, "That's not it, High Mage Solomon, listen to me. This Maffa Merlin likes to act pathetic to trick people. Don't be tricked." Solon, see to the young Monchai. This time, Solomon just ignored Mason's words and directly asked Solon to send him out. "Young Master Monchai, please follow me." "High Mage Solomon, listen to me." Mason was still struggling to make his case, but unfortunately, Solon was already taking him out of the box. No one really cared what else he had to say. As far as Lin Yan and Solomon were concerned, this was only a minor interlude. Neither of them was concerned about the antics of this second young master of the Monchai family. The atmosphere in the box became harmonious once again after Mason's departure. The auction also carried on, and after about half an hour, Lin Yun finally got 2 of the remaining materials that he needed for the mana baptism. Compared to the previous bidding on the Styx water, these 2 purchases went a lot smoother, not attracting the attention of many others. He got them for less than 10,000 gold apiece. 3 of the 4 materials were already in his hands, and Lin Yun was quite relaxed as he continued to chat idly with Solomon, waiting for the last of the required materials to appear. While they were talking, knocking sounds could be heard at the door of the box. This time, it was Monchai himself, followed by a dejected Mason. The young lad had probably been properly taught a lesson by Monchai after his return. Although he still looked at Lin Yun with indignation, he didn't dare to open his mouth. "I am truly sorry, High Mage Solomon. I failed to discipline my son Mason and he offended you and your guest. I'm here to apologize on his behalf." Monchai had his head lowered as he entered, even though Solomon didn't put much weight to the matter, as he sympathized with the woes of parenting. Even if he cared, he wouldn't make things awkward for Monchai now, especially since Maffa hadn't seemed to mind the raving. A trivial matter, President Monchai didn't need to come here personally for that. Solomon smiled politely while shaking his head, as if just remembering. He brought up another subject. "Oh right, President Monchai, Mason said you needed something. I wonder what it is?" "Haha, it is also a trivial matter." Monchai let out a dry laugh, inwardly cursing to himself that the old geezer Solomon was clearly playing dumb. "I clearly looked for you for an important matter. Otherwise, how could I let Mason pass a message instead of waiting for the end of the auction? But that old geezer is good. He asked me about it in front of so many people. Damn, it's not like I can ask whether he wants to conspire against the remains of the Merlin house while we're in front of so many people." But even though Monchai was inwardly cursing, a smile was still plastered on his face. "Oh right, High Mage Solomon, I haven't congratulated you yet for managing to obtain that Hell Destroyer scroll. I believe that the achievements of the Sage Tower will rise another step with this scroll. It's truly worth celebrating." "Haha, it's only a badly damaged Hell Destroyer incantation. If not for the fact that the people from the Ash Tower were determined to get it, I might not have gotten so heated in the bidding." Hearing the 2 old foxes putting on their acts, Lin Yun was getting somewhat annoyed, but it felt too awkward to say that he wanted to leave, so he could only sit there and endure, longing for his last acquisition to appear on the stage. Once he got it, he would take his leave from the box. Fortunately, Lin Yun didn't have to wait long. A few minutes after, the 4th reagent that he needed for the mana baptism appeared. Next item, a bottle of red flame fish oil. Chapter 38. Million. This chapter is updated by Novels.pl. After Khadga announced that the next item was the red flame fish oil, Lin Yun suddenly became lively. In fact, it wasn't just Lin Yun. The eyes of the numerous alchemists of the venue instantly fell upon that small glass bottle. The bottle on the auction stand was the size of a person's thumb and was filled with a red liquid. This was the rumored red flame fish oil. The red flame fish oil didn't add any special effects, but it could neutralize the negative reactions between all kinds of materials. This was something of incalculable value to any alchemist. A peak alchemist could rely on the bottle of red flame fish oil to compound a potion of the great alchemist's rank, while a peak great alchemist could even touch the realm of a master alchemist with a bottle of red flame fish oil. This was like raising the best potion one could make by an entire rank. Moreover, red flame fish oil was extremely rare on the market. Even an event like the Black Horn auction hadn't seen the slightest shadow of red flame fish oil for several years. Nothing could be done about it, as red flame fish could only be found in the sea neighboring Spark Island. This wasn't a place one could casually visit, as there would frequently be king-level sea beasts roaming the place. If an ordinary mercenary group entered that part of the sea, they would probably be swallowed by a frightening sea beast within a few minutes. Without 1 or 2 powerful high mages to keep watch, they simply couldn't go there, and if insisted on going anyways, they would be throwing their lives away. Furthermore, the red flame fish wasn't easy to handle either. They had no fighting strength, but they naturally had extremely high temperatures and always moved in groups, often numbering in the thousands. When they swam together, the entire area around them would be constantly boiling, and even many frightening king-level sea beasts weren't willing to appear in front of them. A group of red flame fish swimming through the vast sea, causing the water to boil wherever they went. No matter how powerful a fleet was, in front of this terrifying power, they might have trouble just surviving. The one who procured this small bottle of red flame fish oil had likely suffered great difficulties in procuring it. The alchemists in the venue instantly sank into a fanatical state once this bottle of red flame fish oil appeared in the auction. Khadga had yet to declare the starting price when a middle-aged alchemist called out his bid of 100,000 gold. "Hey, Alchemist Mana, you are a bit too anxious." Khadga rubbed his forehead, not knowing whether to laugh or cry at the alchemist's reaction. "I can't do anything about it. All my liquid assets add up to a total of 100,000 gold. I can't compete with others, so I might as well call the first price to get over it." This middle-aged man named Mana had a pretty good attitude, and following Khadga's teasing, he actually pointed at the rest of the venue and smiled bitterly, somewhat easing the tension brought by the red flame fish oil. "Ha ha. Very well. Since Alchemist Manu already made an offer, then the starting price of this bottle of red flame fish oil will be 100,000 gold, and the minimum bid increment will be 10,000. 150,000 gold. 170,000. 200,000 gold. Khadga had barely finished his sentence when voices began calling out their bids. The relatively poor alchemist Mana truly didn't have the chance to bid. Lin Yan knew that he wouldn't get this one without spending a large amount. 300,000 gold. Just as Lin Yan was hesitating on whether he should bid early or wait, Monchai announced a new price. Lin Yan closed his mouth. Good. Even the Monchai family wants this item. It seems that this red flame fish oil truly won't be sold for a low price. Lin Yan's guess was right. Monchai's bid couldn't quell the fervor of the many alchemists, as it was immediately followed by a bid of 450,000. The jump in price was crazily high. 700,000 gold. When Monchai increased the price to 700,000, the enthusiasm of the alchemists began to cool down. That price was truly a bit too high, and many of the alchemists who had just wanted to try putting in a bid were eliminated at this point. The only ones left that could participate were a few great alchemists. Because the average alchemist couldn't afford this kind of money, even if this bottle of red flame fish oil could let them compound a potion that exceeded their level, it would only be a great alchemist level potion. Such a potion wouldn't sell for enough to warrant such a high price. But if it was for a master level potion, this bottle of red flame fish potion could still be considered a decent investment at its current price. Obviously, Monchai was very pleased with the price he had quoted. After the venue calmed down, Monchai slowly sat down at his seat, faintly leaning toward the back of his chair and smiling as if everything was going as planned. But that smile didn't last long, as the young mage sitting not far from him stood up. 800,000 gold. The smile on Monchai's face became strange. Monchai had considered many possible turns that the bidding war could have taken, such as the great alchemist of the Silver Moon mercenaries bidding against him, or Solomon deciding to join in, or Thorpe wishing to acquire it. He'd even considered the possibility that Khadga would personally try to bid, but Monchai definitely hadn't thought that after his bid of 700,000 gold, the young Merlin would place the next bid. This was 800,000 gold after all, not 80,000 gold or 8,000 gold. A few months ago, that young Merlin couldn't even pay the debt to his uncle and had almost been forced to give up his house. How could he suddenly place a bid of 800,000 gold now? What's going on? Monchai couldn't make sense of this. Did I guess wrong? Was that Merlin brat not backed up by Thale of the Black Horn auction? It might really be the case apostrophe. He glanced around the box again and noted, Mather Merlin is clearly sitting next to Solomon while Thale was sitting with Solon. This obviously shows his status relative to the others here. In this box, Solomon and Merlin have far higher status than Solon and Thale. What's more, even if Thale is thought highly of by Khadga, he definitely can't take out a huge sum of 800,000 gold. This Mather Merlin definitely has another source of funding. But if it's not Thale, who is it? Solomon? At this point, Monchai gave Solomon a suspicious glance. Solomon grinned as he noticed the strange look, but simply turned a blind eye. This time, Solomon's mood was actually quite good, especially when he saw Monchai's puzzled expression. 850,000 gold. Monchai was thinking, but unfortunately, the auction wouldn't wait, so he had no choice but to make a new bid after some hesitation. This was a price that was already painful to Monchai. The Twin Moons Chamber of Commerce was extremely rich in Thousand Sails City, and their wealth couldn't be easily challenged. But paying so much for a bottle of red flame fish oil couldn't but make him feel bad. And without giving him any time to feel better, that wretched Merlin's voice echoed again. 900,000 gold. Monchai frowned and stared at Lin Yun for a while before asking in a cold voice, "It seems that Mage Merlin is quite interested in this bottle of red flame fish oil." "It's not bad," Lin Yun calmly said while thinking. "You two old foxes have been acting for a while, shouldn't it be my turn now?" When he heard Lin Yun's nonchalant answer, Monchai frowned, and a twitching vein could be seen on his forehead. But regardless of what happened, the competition for the red flame fish oil would continue, as this was something that the great alchemist of his family wanted. 950,000 gold. Monchai bid. Every syllable gave him the urge to spit blood. 100,000 gold. But immediately, another bid was made, and it still came from the young mage next to him. Monchai couldn't accept this. Monchai very much wanted to ask, "Isn't your flashing gold chamber of commerce nearly bankrupt? How could you act so improper at an auction? It would be fine if it was others, but how could you do this to me, the family head of the Monchai family?" 100,000 golds. Monchai clenched his teeth and added another 100,000 gold to the bid, hoping that it would scare away that wretched Mafia Merlin. But 200,000 gold. Monchai's face was already pale. He looked at Lin Yun with murder in his eyes. His next words didn't contain the slightest hint of hypocritical courtesy, only dripping unconcealed hostility. "Mage Merlin, going against the Monchai family isn't a wise decision." "Ha, the weather is pretty good today." "Good, good, good," Monchai muttered 3 times in a row and suddenly stood up, before taking Mason and leaving the Sage Towers box. He didn't even bid farewell to Solomon on his way out. President Monchai's poise is truly looking at Monchai's retreating back. Lin Yun made a sneering comment but trailed off. Solomon smiled, not denying his words, yet not agreeing. In fact, the doubt in Solomon's heart wasn't inferior to Monchai's. Chapter 39. Finale. This chapter is updated by Novels.pl. Although the two had never been in contact, Solomon had started paying attention to this young mage a few months ago. At that time, that young mage had sent a bottle of Spectrum potion to the Sage Tower and came out with a pass with the highest privileges. He then used it to stay in the library for about 2 months. During these 2 months, although Solomon didn't visit the library, Solon had brought him information about the young man every day, what kind of book Mage Merlin had read that day, notes on what Mage Merlin did the next day, what kind of opinion Mage Merlin shared the day after that. Solomon even remembered some things that Lin Yun didn't necessarily remember. Because Solomon knew that this young mage was very remarkable, far more remarkable than anyone thought. Solon didn't even know that that first day, when he brought Lin Yun's opinion on the Fanruzen formula, Solomon had returned to his study to write a letter to Star Sage Dewey. There were 4 pieces of data in this letter and it quickly led to an upsurge of discussion in the circles of mages across the kingdom. It wasn't only Star Sage Dewey, it wasn't just the Cloud Tower. Many powerful mages interested in the Fanruzen formula began participating in this discussion, though letters, and even more mages started acknowledging that these 4 pieces of data might very well fix the errors of the Fanruzen formula. Many had sent their congratulations to Solomon because they felt that the information he had shared constituted a major discovery that would be recorded in the annals of magic. Reading these congratulatory messages, Solomon could only force a smile. Only Solomon himself knew that these 4 pieces of data didn't belong to him, but rather, to a young mage that was only 20 years old. But Solomon wasn't sure whether that young mage had calculated and analyzed these 4 pieces of data himself or if he had heard about it from someone else. Thus, for the moment, Solomon could only urge him to stay and try to bring up the topic of magic during their idle chat, trying to probe him and see whether this young mage's magic knowledge was really deep enough to clearly understand the mistakes in the Fenrisen formula. It was hard to say for the time being, but one thing was certain, that young mage was definitely much better acquainted with magic theory than his peers. He was even sure that it surpassed the great mage realm, because in the discussion just now, Solomon felt that this young mage was definitely holding back and not fully showing off what he knew and understood. But even this much was frightening enough. A 20-year-old with the knowledge of a great mage. And given time, let alone his disciple Solon, even Ryan of the Monchai family might be left in the dust. Right now, this young mage was frantically competing over alchemy materials, just as some incredible potions appeared. What did this mean? Solomon had already been having some suspicions about whether the great alchemist backing the young Merlin actually existed. Could the alchemist actually be Mava Merlin himself? 2 months ago, Solomon would never have believed this. The reason was very simple. Everyone knew that a good mage wasn't necessarily a good alchemist, but a good alchemist was definitely a good mage. This might sound weird, but it was well backed by history. Alchemy originally came from magic, and the deeper the alchemy, the deeper the magic knowledge needed to be. Many theories, many conclusions couldn't be understood without enough magic knowledge, and some fields of alchemy required enough mana to conduct them. Choosing a very simple example, one of the Sage Tower's 3 big shots, Thorpe. Before advancing to become a high mage, Thorpe had been stuck at the peak of the alchemist level for 10 years. But when he became a high mage, his alchemy suddenly advanced by leaps and bounds, and in a month, he was also a great alchemist. Mava Merlin had just become a mage, so how could he have the level of a great alchemist? But now, Solomon was really doubtful. A mage with the knowledge of a great mage in theory, he should already have the ability to craft the Spectrum potion. Moreover, he was now going all out bidding on a few alchemy materials. Solomon was sitting in the corner of the box, bursting into a violent cough from time to time. Finally, his eyes, which had been so filled with hesitation, suddenly became resolute. The bidding on the red flame fish oil had already come to an end, and Lin Yun had used 200,000 gold to get the last material needed for his mana baptism. Once he got hold of the red flame fish oil, the auction was already over for Lin Yun. But to many people, it had just begun, because the last item would be the grand finale. This was a tradition of the Black Horn auction. The most precious and shocking items would be auctioned at the end, both as a way to increase the suspense, and a way to express respect. It was like how in a story, the most important character would always appear last to save the day. The next lot is the finale of the auction, Khadga said while lifting the silk cloth that was on the pedestal, exposing a red potion and a black potion. I introduced to everyone, the volcano potion and the ghost potion. Oh my god. Is that really a volcano potion and a ghost potion? How could these appear in Thousand Sails City? Khadga had yet to finish when the entire venue broke into a commotion. If one could say that the auction of the Hell Destroyer incantation and the red flame fish oil had created a stir, then what these 2 potions brought was an explosive shock. Most of the people who attended the Black Horn auction were very knowledgeable, so how could they not know of the famous volcano potion and ghost potion? In fact, this wasn't as simple as hearing about it. These 2 potions approaching the Master Alchemist level had already become legendary existences in the hearts of these people. Able to make mana burst like a volcano, the volcano potion that could let a great mage instantaneously reach the high mage realm. Able to turn the body into nothingness, the ghost potion that made one immune to injuries. These 2 potions could be said to be at the peak of the great alchemist realm. Any great alchemist that mastered these 2 potions would be able to tread on the path to become a master alchemist. Moreover, a great alchemist that reached this level wouldn't compound these potions rashly, firstly because the materials were prohibitively expensive, preventing many great alchemists from being able to afford it, and secondly because these 2 potions required a lot of time and effort to create. It would usually take somewhere from a dozen days to a month to compound one. If anything went wrong, the time and money invested would be wasted. The appearance of either of these 2 potions would attract countless forces, and they wouldn't hesitate to empty their coffers to obtain them. And now, the two potions appeared at the same time. Could there suddenly be two great alchemists with the potential to become master alchemists that appeared at the same time in Thousand Sails City? Or was it the same person? I think that everyone must feel strange. Since there are two potions, why are they being auctioned together? Khadga said this before shamelessly stopping to build suspense. He waited for everyone to be on the edge of their seat before he unhurriedly said, the reason is simply that these two potions were compounded by the same person. The same person. The shock caused by this answer was no less than the initial shock of seeing the two potions themselves. Compounding one such potion was already a very formidable feat. And yet someone had actually compounded both of them together. What was that? Was this person just deliberately trying to shock people? But I can let everyone know that this future master is very very young. A lot younger than you imagine. Khadga explained up to this point before stopping. No matter how much people asked, he wouldn't agree to leak another word about it. An old fox like Khadga knew what he should say and what he shouldn't. Saying that the same person made both potions was fine, and teasing their young age was fine too. It was only to raise the price of the potions, giving them a certain flavor. He would run into issues if he said any more. He managed to get closer to Mage Merlin before the Sage Tower with great difficulty, but before he established a solid relationship, Khadga wouldn't put this future master alchemist in the limelight. That would be counterproductive. Khadga's flashy and merciless introduction piqued everyone's interest. Two potions infinitely close to the master alchemist realm and compounded by the same person. Khadga had actually come up with such a fierce finale for this auction. Khadga himself was a great alchemist brimming with talent. He was only 40 years old when he stepped into the great alchemist realm. And now, Khadga even used the words younger than you imagine to describe the mysterious alchemist. Just how young was the alchemist who compounded these potions? 35 years old, maybe even 30 years old. Younger still. Just thinking that this might be the case made everyone in the venue feel numb. All these people sitting in the auction room weren't simple characters. There was no lack of leaders from major forces here. They had many alchemists themselves. So how could they not know how hard it was to nurture a talented alchemist? Chapter 40, Sky High Price. This chapter is updated by Novels.pl. Regardless of how talented an apprentice alchemist was, they needed time to mature. The abstruse and unfathomable alchemy theories and the boundless sea of alchemy formulas both needed a lot of time to digest and understand. Many apprentice alchemists failed to ever become full-fledged alchemists. It could be said that a 30-year-old alchemist was a rare talent. As for someone like Khadga that had become a great alchemist at the age of 40, he was unique in Thousand Sails City. But now, Khadga himself had described this great alchemist that had compounded a ghost potion and a volcano potion as younger than they could imagine. Although Khadga didn't say how young the person was, everyone here could more or less guess that the age was younger than 35, or else Khadga wouldn't have exaggerated so much. The Black Horn auction house had already taken root in Thousand Sails City for 20 years. So everyone present knew of the character of the chief auctioneer. This chief auctioneer had always been rigorous, and even during an auction, Khadga had never excessively exaggerated the introduction of an item being auctioned. When Khadga said that there was only one of some item, even if you searched all of Nocent, you definitely wouldn't find a second identical item. It was the same now. Khadga had said that this was a great alchemist younger than they'd imagine, so this great alchemist was definitely no older than 35. Thinking about it, a great alchemist that was younger than 35 and could enter the realm of a master any time, such a crazy possibility made everyone in the audience feel feverish. They all made guesses and discussed the possibilities. The interest that these forces held toward this future master alchemist even surpassed the value of the two potions themselves. In just a few minutes, there were at least 7 or 8 major figures that had called for their most trusted and capable subordinates, whispering them some orders. In short, before bidding even started on the final lot, it had already caused a huge commotion across the entire venue. The following two potions will start at the low price of 300,000 gold. And the minimum bid increment is 30,000 gold. Seeing that he had reached the effect he wanted to achieve, Khadga officially called for bids on the final lot with a pleased smile. 100,000 gold. Khadga's words had just finished when a voice came out from a box on the second floor. These two potions will belong to our Ash Tower. The voice that announced the bid was the one who had bid against Solomon for the Hell Destroyer incantation. The hatred and hostility between the Sage Tower and Ash Tower could be traced back to the distant Third Dynasty. These two forces residing in the eastern part of the kingdom were constantly fighting each other. They fought over everything: natural resources, talents, knowledge, equipment. They were completely unscrupulous in their attempts to suppress each other. As early as several hundred years ago, there was a large-scale war which resulted in many mages losing their lives. It also planted the seeds of hatred in the hearts of the survivors. Although there had been no open conflicts for the next 100+ years, the battles in the dark were even more intense than they had been before the Great War. Since the Ash Tower had placed a bid, the Sage Tower would naturally follow, unwilling to fall behind. Although the Hell Destroyer incantation had cost 400,000 gold, half of it had been covered by Lin Yan, so Solomon still had enough funds to put up a fight for something of this caliber. You said these potions would belong to the Ash Tower? Khadga had yet to say anything when Solomon's coughing voice came out of the Sage Tower box. 100,000 gold. This clear provocation was a challenge to the Ash Tower's reputation, so how could the Ash Tower allow that? A cold snort came out before another bid followed. 300,000 gold. 400,000 gold. 500,000 gold. 600,000 gold. 700,000 gold. The two men kept outbidding each other, and in no time at all, the price had reached 700,000 gold without anyone else getting involved. This was such a big venue with so many forces, yet no one else had placed a bid. Who didn't know that these two eastern forces were irreconcilable adversaries? It seemed that they were fighting over two potions right now, but they were mainly suppressing each other. This auction was akin to a battle between two major magic forces. But it wasn't as if everyone was scared of these two forces. All those sitting here today were great and influential figures. If they found something that they felt was worth it and was highly beneficial to them, they would go for it even if they risked offending another power. The problem was that they hadn't reached that stage yet. The ownership of the two potions had yet to be decided, so offending two forces at once wasn't such a good idea. It was better to wait until the outcome of their battle was decided, and it wouldn't be too late to bid afterwards. No matter how overbearing the two forces were, it wouldn't stop others from participating, right? Even if they could threaten them, could they threaten the Black Horn auction house too? Thus, everyone waited for one of the sides to drop out of the bidding war. Fortunately, it didn't last long. Once the price reached 700,000 gold, Solomon couldn't keep bidding. There was nothing he could do about it, as even if Lin Yan shared half of the expenses of the Hell Destroyer, he still had to pay 700,000 gold for it. This wasn't a small amount. Spending another 2,000 gold on two potions wasn't something that the Sage Tower could handle. Of course, even if they couldn't handle it, Solomon definitely wouldn't just directly admit defeat. Forget it. The Sage Tower doesn't lack those two potions. I shall take pity on your Ash Tower and let you have them. And the High Mage from the Ash Tower only sneered back. This bidding war between the two forces definitely ended up as a win for the Ash Tower. But the win of the Ash Tower didn't mean that the auction for the two potions had ended. On the contrary, the true auction could finally begin. Just as expected, Solomon's withdrawal was followed by a new bid. 800,000 gold. Lin Yan glanced toward the source of the voice and saw that the bid had come from a middle-aged man that seemed to be about 40 years old with a tall stature and a stern gaze. He was carrying a dark great sword on his back. A thick, bloody smell came from the great sword. He was definitely a powerful person that had been through an abundance of slaughter, as only such a person could handle the murderous weapon on his back. That is Sasu, Silver Moon Mercenary Group's leader. The blow of losing the auction to the Ash Tower didn't seem as great as many would imagine. Solomon was smiling. When he saw a bit of puzzlement in Lin Yan's face, he patiently explained, "During your father's time, he cooperated a lot with them. The Silver Moon Mercenary Group's wealth isn't ordinary. Watch. the Ash Tower will quickly end up crying. 200,000 gold. The middle-aged high mage felt like weeping. When he placed the bid, his voice was hoarse. Although he had defeated Solomon, the Ash Tower couldn't keep going. 200,000 gold wasn't a small amount at all. Even a major force like the Ash Tower would take a large hit if they had to pay out so much money. 500,000 gold. When the price reached 500,000 gold, there was a long pause, during which the Ash Tower seemed to be struggling, before they placed a bid of 600,000 gold. But right as they bid 300,000 gold, this time, the Ash Tower box was completely silent. It wasn't just the Ash Tower. The entire venue was silent. Everyone was looking at Satu with shock and disbelief. Before the bidding had begun, no one would have expected such a shocking number. This was 300,000 gold. If invested in any industry of Thousand Sails City, it would be enough to cause an earthquake. That's right, the two potions on the pedestal could be described as valuable. It could even be said that there were some of the finest items ever auctioned at the Black Horn auction house. But no matter how valuable or how great they were they worth such a huge amount? 300,000 gold was enough to invite a real master alchemist. If someone else did this, many of those in the venue might think that person was a lunatic. But this was Satu. Satu's insight had been famous in Thousand Sails City. In over a dozen years, none of his decisions had turned out to be mistakes, including investing in the flashing gold chamber of commerce and having a good relationship with the Sage Tower. In one matter after another, people felt like he had made a crazy choice, but afterwards, they saw that the vision of the leader of the Silver Moon mercenaries was far-reaching. Could it be that it was the same for these two potions? Thinking of this, a few people who still had the means to compete couldn't help but be swayed. But even if they were swayed, this was 300,000 gold. After all, their spirit of competitiveness just rose up for a bit before falling again. 300,000 gold was a bid that scared everyone. Leader Sasu of the Silver Moon mercenaries has placed a bid for 300,000 gold. Is there anyone willing to bid higher? At this time, Khadga had a slightly flushed face on stage, and his voice was a bit louder than usual. Although the Black Horn auction house had made quite a few huge sales in these past few years, to have an auction that would have bid increments of hundreds of thousands before finally reaching 300,000 gold, it was the first time even for Khadga himself.